House to Home, presented by Remax Diamond Realty.
Hafide, welcome back, everybody. House to Home is the name of the segment, and competition is not only what we talk about here, because this is a business world and it's a very, very lucrative market. Liz, Gina, and myself are also competing, as we do each and every week since the pandemic started, on best virtual background here in Zoom. I gotta say, ladies, I thought I was being creative because, of course, Camp Crystal Lake from the Friday the 13th movies tends to be kind of good with guys named Jason. But I gotta say, I am like third place, and I am a distant third because, Gina, that is an absolutely gorgeous rendition of a carabao.
Yeah, it's a river down in Agate, and this is brought to you thanks to Ken Leon Guerrero. He's not just a master electrician, he's an artist.
Oh, we know Ken. Ken's a friend of ours. Yeah, Ken. Hey, great job, Ken. That is beautiful. And
hey,
and you
Ken,
know what?
I want one.
Well, okay, I was going to say, you want one, I think, and I'm going to go ahead and guess because I lived in that part of the island, but I did not live in Villa Cantantasi, and that's what that building is, right? Yeah, that's a really nice condo complex.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically your backyard is the beach, so you can't get better than. Okay, so I'm going to say it's a tie between the two of you, and I tried to be clever with my Friday the 13th reference, but you guys win. Well, one thing that we are talking about, since we are talking about the nature of competition and everything, is how actually property can be appraised. And Liz, I know, or Gina, I'm sorry, you said you wanted to kind of take us in an interesting direction about how property value might actually change or, have more than at first glance.
Well, we talked about how competitive the market is right now, right? We've kind of been talking about that for a little bit. We've discussed the fact that it's a seller's market. We all acknowledge that. And for any buyer that's out there actively searching for a home, they get it. After you miss out on the first 3 or 4 offers you put in a bid on, then you absolutely get it. And what we've been telling people is, I know we keep saying that it's expensive to build, but if you already own property, or maybe if you're just keep getting bidded out of the residential market, maybe that's a good alternative, is to take a look at what you already own and figure out, can you build on it? Or if you're going to go that route and decide to buy land and build, yes, it's expensive to build. The cost per square foot is high, but that's the alternative, because waiting for the market to slow down, I just don't see that happening anytime soon, if at all.
And Liz, one thing that we're noticing is uncertainty is the rule of the day these days. I mean, because you could say, okay, well, you could hold on to your property. It might actually increase over time. You could, do things like enhancements, developments, or, knock on wood, but, things could actually take a turn for the worse. So should you just take the money and run?
Well, Gina and I were talking about this earlier, that what are your alternatives? If you keep putting in an offer and it keeps getting rejected because someone bid higher, what is your alternative? John and I are building in Barragata right now, and it's not easy because there's a number of factors, people. If you have land, there's a number of things you've got to do. Number one, you've got to go inspect your property, make sure there are no setbacks or encroachments onto the property. And then there's the lay of the land. Right now, we had to do a topo to see, what is the lay of the land, the topography, is it all flat? Is there any elevations? Because then the contractor needs that to determine the footprint of the home. And then the other thing is he was doing a layout. Where is the house going to sit? Does it fit on the lot? How many square feet of home are you going to place on it? And then the infrastructure is another issue. Is there power and water onto the property?
And one thing that is worth mentioning is, your husband, John, is a very, very good and highly respected engineer. And of course, you have your sterling reputation as a real estate professional. For the average folks like myself that aren't, intimately involved in those lines of work, it would be significantly more expensive.
Yes, it not just expensive, but we as realtors, our job is to at least give some guidance so that we can give you, from our own experience and from experience from our previous dealings with clients, what problems did they encounter in trying to build? So, I mean, Gina and I are dealing with people who found out Gina had one where it cost, first they told her it was going to be, the utilities were close by, and she factored in the cost, only to find out she had to go 1 mile down to hook up, which raised the price higher than what she anticipated. So many factors on that. You know, remember that she had to go 1 mile down to hook up, and then her price point just went awfully high.
Mm.
Yeah. You know, Jace, for consumers out there, you mentioned that, you know, in Liz's situation, she has a licensed engineer there. That's a lot of information and not a lot of knowledge. He is not your typical consumer. He knows exactly what to check. But for the average citizen, the average person who owns a piece of property, that's a really good point that Liz brought up. As a real estate agent, I have a piece of property that I already sold. And being a realtor, I investigated the utilities. I already, you know, I told the consumer, hey, there's the 6-inch water line that runs right down this road. Power poles right there. That's a no-brainer for the most part, because those are the regulations. You have a 6-inch water line, you have power. There's, you know, GWA for the most part, 99% of the time, they should sign off and let you build. In this particular case, and I always tell my customers, yes, I gave you the information, but talk is cheap. You got to go verify.
Mm-hmm.
Go to GWA yourself and make sure they're going to allow you to connect. Thankfully, they did that. They went to GWA and GWA said, oh, you know what? That 4-inch line, it's 40 years old. We're not gonna allow you to connect. We want you to connect from here. And so when we got the quote, Jason, $90,000 to bring in the water line.
Ooh.
Those buyers bought it.
And if I can add an addendum to what you just said, and you know, of course, it is a rule of business that talk is cheap. But as soon as you get the appraisal or you get some sort of, you know, assessment, make sure you get that in writing, because from that point on, you know, that's a code.
It's good to get it in writing, Jace, but when you're dealing with government of Guam agencies, just because they give it to you in writing doesn't mean it's set in stone. There are factors where they can come back later and say, well, we're changing it now. And
I have a problem with that, because is that not a binding contract? Or at least
not a contract. It's just a verification, and
at least a binding legal document.
Now, and you got your building permit. You go back a year from now, GWA. I have heard in more than a handful of instances where they've changed their mind and said, "Well, we changed our mind. This inspector or this engineer at GWA there's things that have changed, and now we want you to do it this way." Lo and behold, the house is done. And you're sitting there trying to figure out how to make it work.
So Liz, what is the, let's call it the golden path? What is the path of least resistance if you do want to get, you know, the best value for your property, and hopefully not move too fast?
As Gina and I put it, we can provide information as realtors in terms of what we know. However, I always tell the client, you've got to go verify, do your own due diligence, because if I tell you one thing and then later you buy the property and then you're told you can't do ABC, which was your intent to build whatever the case may be, and then you're unable to do so because it was cost prohibitive. I know one person I sold was $60,000 worth of power and water. Luckily, he had the wherewithal to make that happen. However, as Gina puts it, your regular consumer may not be aware of the cost factors involved. So, you know, you always have to do due diligence, go to the right people to get the information. But when you're building, you need, of course, check your property. You need an engineer to look at it. You need an architect to design the home. You need a surveyor to make sure the point. So there's just so many factors involved in building.
Okay, final question, and I'd like a one sentence answer for each of you before we end this segment. So, with the nature of the world and of the business world being what it is right now because of the coronavirus pandemic, how are we in conducting these land transactions and property transactions supposed to deal with the slightly elevated, and I think that's putting it delicately, the elevated sense of risk that we now have to deal with? So, Gina, you first.
Oh man, I'm the wrong person to ask because I'm out there doing what I need to do. You know, you mean with showing properties to customers, right?
Yeah, and just holding on to your property so that you can get maximum value for it at the right time. Because one thing I've learned about you is you're someone who has really, really good instincts, and you know when to pull the trigger. You've got a really good knack for that. How can the average person like myself know when the right time is to do that deal?
You ask a good realtor. You go to a good agent who's honest with you, who's going to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear, and they will tell you. And like for and that's why we're promoting. Listen, it's competitive out there for residential. If you want to sell, I think it's a great time. It is an absolutely great time to sell because there's so many buyers in the market. You price your property well, you're going to have competing offers. But if you're looking to buy, if you're looking for a home and you're a buyer, that's why Liz and I are promoting, man, if you have land, come and see us. Let's take a look at it. Maybe you need to be thinking about building instead.
Okay, well, I asked for a one sentence answer, and that was an entire chapter, but really, really good stuff. I'm not going to disparage that. So Liz, your final thoughts.
Okay, I've got to say is we don't just pull words and figures out of our mouths or out of the other end. We definitely look at the market. I always go to the facts, go to our stats. We always look at our multiple listing service to see what has sold, what the values are, what the market is. We don't just pull it out of the air. We're factual. And then if we don't have the information, we tap on the appraisers and say, hey, what comparables do you have? And these are indicators that we put together to determine, is it a buyer's market? Is it a seller's market? Is it a good time to sell? Is it a good time to buy? So again, we base on our experience, number one. We base it on facts and figures.
Well, and the part of the real estate transaction that is probably going to be your best investment, ladies and gentlemen watching right now, is investing in a really good realtor. It is a gift that keeps on giving. And I'm glad I got two really, really good ones here with me now in each and every week. So Liz and Gina, thank you as always. And I'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jace.
Bye.
House to Home, presented by Remax Diamond Realty.